as a whole.
The report was written by Dr. Heather Ashton. She disagrees with the committee.
Well, there isn't any definite evidence on this, but certainly from a clinical viewpoint, lorazepam seems to cause more problems than most benzodiazepines. One of them is that it's quite common for patients who've taken it to get a real craving for it. This is probably because it's excreted fairly quickly, and after you've taken the morning dose, patients will say by lunchtime they're beginning to feel the need of the next dose, and they're even looking at their watch to see if it's time for the next tablet. And they get quite severe anxiety symptoms sometimes while they're waiting for the next dose. Another important point is that there's no particular need to prescribe lorazepam. There isn't any one condition or one type of patient that must have this drug, and there are other benzodiazepines which one can use just as well for the same purpose.
When somebody comes into my office and says that they've been trying to stop their lorazepam, my heart sinks, because I know I shall have twice as much problem as getting them off, say, Valium. The symptoms are more severe, they're more persistent, they're more bizarre, and people are much more distressed by them than they are with the symptoms, say, coming off Valium.
October 1975 was Sheila Whiteman's wedding day at her local parish church in Sunderland. But the bride was high on Ativan.
I was prescribed Ativan 12 years ago, 4 days before my wedding, because I had, premarital nerves. I was nervous about getting married. The actual ceremony, so my doctor prescribed to give me some tablets for 4 days before the wedding.
Had you ever used any form of tranquilizers before?
No, never. I know everything went well, everything went marvellous, but I can't remember much of the wedding. I can picture myself going down the aisle, and that's about it. I can't really remember the reception one bit, or after the reception, none of it. Everybody was coming up and saying I looked a bride and looked lovely, but it was just empty. I didn't feel a thing.
Sheila's wedding day marked the beginning of an addiction that lasted 12 years and which finally cost her her marriage. Over the past 12 months, she's come off Ativan slowly, painfully and alone. But she's still housebound with agoraphobia. In 6 years, she's not travelled the 1 mile to her town centre.
I can't go out. I get panicky, frightened. I just can't do it. I find I go into the garden more than anywhere else, and I play with the dogs there. I feel safe there because it's near home. Not being able to go out really means I lose out on life.
What were you like before you took Ativan?
Very bubbly, very an outgoing person, always wanting to be out, 7 nights a week, always wanting to be out, loving life.
It was only when Sheila changed her GP that her new doctor told her she must stop taking Ativan. What sort of things had your previous doctors and psychiatrists said to you?
I was told by a psychiatrist to get down on my hands and knees every day and thank God for the person who invented Ativan. And I thought, this is the wonder drug, I'll take it all the time. It was making me live. But unfortunately, I didn't know it was having the adverse effect on me. But I really thought them knew what they were talking about. But obviously, taking it all these years, I now realise it wasn't.
So in 9 years, not a single doctor whom you'd seen had alerted you to the dangers of Ativan?
If I was feeling nervy, I was told to double up on Ativan, take extra. I would say my head feels as though it's reeling, and instead of saying it was anxiety, which I know it is now, and helping me to cope with it in other ways, they would say double up on your tablets, which I did, and I thought that helped. What it did is made me very numb. I couldn't take things in. I just become a recluse and a very unhappy person. I've often thought to keep people off drugs, they should let a doctor go through exactly what I went through, and he wouldn't prescribe them. I've gone through sheer hell, days of when I just didn't want to go on. I felt suicidal. There was thoughts going through my head that it's not worth going on, putting up with all of this. Why am I going through this? Why am I having to suffer like this? Through someone giving me a drug which I didn't really need.
Concern about the effect of tranquilizers like Ativan has led some doctors to seek new ways of treating stress. Here in the northeast, people addicted to Ativan learn to cope with anxiety in a relaxation class.
Really, it's very difficult to fit the people who come to us into any category whatsoever. The problem is across all social class. The age range is from 19 to 82. At present, we have more men than we have women. Stress is part of everyone's daily life. This is why we use the relaxation. Everyone who comes to us makes the relaxation part of their daily life.
This clinic in Devon uses electroacupuncture to reduce the pain of withdrawal for Ativan addicts. It's run by consultant psychiatrist Chris Gillespie, who's also convinced there are other ways than drugs to treat anxiety.
I think there are a number of psychological and social measures of treatment, including relaxation training, the use of alternative adjuncts, for example, the electroacupuncture that we've used for withdrawals, the use of yoga, the use of meditation, and the use of sport activity, and the use of more sophisticated psychological treatments. Although they take longer and are perhaps more painful for the patient, they are more effective in the long term.
The clinic was set up to treat people on heroin, but it was soon treating tranquilizer addicts too, many of them taking lorazepam.
We found clinically that people on lorazepam were having greater difficulties than with other of the minor tranquilizers.
What sort of withdrawal symptoms did those on lorazepam experience?
Well, generally they described an increase in tension and anxiety, sleep disturbance, but peculiar to lorazepam, they described burning sensations in their limbs or in their abdomen, creeping and crawling feelings under their skin, oversensitivity to light and sound, and a feeling of rocking, and also feeling detached from reality and feeling unreal themselves.
Today, people addicted to Ativan outnumber heroin addicts 4-1. Acupuncturist Jim Corcoran has spent 10 years treating drug addicts.
We have much more difficulty in getting people off Ativan than we do heroin, mainly because with heroin we can treat people for a couple of weeks because it's a natural opiate. Within a couple of weeks treatment they're off, and then the problem with heroin is just staying off. But with Ativan, it's much more prolonged and take up a lot more time in terms of treatment than do heroin users. The electroacupuncture really stimulates the production of some natural chemicals that we've got inside our bodies, endorphins they're called. And after the treatment they feel better, they're more relaxed, they sleep better, appetite improves, and as time goes on in the treatment, they take up activities that they had previously given up or forgotten.
What was it like coming off Ativan?
Terrifying and sheer. I would never want to go through it again.
What sort of things did you go through?
Panic, shaking, just sweating, couldn't sleep, frightened, fear.
If there was a hell, I've been there and back, and it's something I'd never want to go through again. I had horrific withdrawal symptoms, feelings of unreality, didn't know who I was, severe tremor, anxiety, tension, couldn't sleep. There's so many different things I suffered.
I think that if God said to me that I had to be an addict to survive or to live on this planet, I would much rather be a heroin addict than an Ativan addict.
We have this absurd situation where the DHSS is spending huge amounts of money on helping people who are addicted to heroin, when the heroin problem, in comparison to the lorazepam problem, is minute. There are at most 50,000 people in this country who are users of hard drugs, heroin, morphine, and so on. And the number of deaths which are associated with heroin and morphine is really quite small. And yet the number of people who are addicted to lorazepam is in the hundreds of thousands. There are people whose lives have been devastated, people whose marriages are broken up, they've lost their homes, they've lost their jobs, all because of one drug.
Joseph Tutt lost his job as an engineer and was forced to retire at the age of 52 because of his 8-year-long Ativan addiction. His fight to come off the drug 4 years ago was the most terrifying ordeal of his life.
I've known ordinary fear. In the Second World War, I was in the Navy. I was out in the Far East. Before that, I've been bombed in the London Blitz. I've been machine gunned. Personally machine gunned, I mean, I really mean that. I had a war wound. But you don't, that's just normal fear. I used to box professionally. Before a fight, you're very, very tense. It's you and the other person and the crowd. And that's very, very frightening. But once it's over, it's finished with. But not with Ativan. It lasts every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every month. And in some cases, it lasts for years. And it still has its little effects on me now, years afterwards.
Like thousands of other Ativan addicts, Joseph never thought that anything given to him on prescription could cause so much suffering for him and his wife.
It's turned everything upside down. It broke up our family life. And as a result, we've had to, really start again. I've always enjoyed good health. And I know it has affected me. I'm not quite the same person that I was. I do now suffer with hypertension because I had a lot of worry because I didn't realise how this thing was going to affect my husband.
Joseph Tutt has been advised that he has a case against his doctor. He's now going to sue the GP on legal aid. What do you hope to achieve by taking legal action?
Well, it'll highlight this problem. In my case, Ativan, which is a terrible drug. And I hope it will help other people.
I never saw a doctor apart from the first time when I went on it before my wedding day. I used to pick my prescription up from the receptionist. In about 6 years, I never saw the doctor at all.
I feel incredibly bitter on my own behalf and my family's behalf that I was put through that amount of suffering. Both the wasted years because I was on the drug and the agony, mental and physical, in coming off the drug. I feel nobody has the right to put me through that and tell me, tough, grin and bear it. We can't do anything about it. Nobody has the right to do that to me.
But I've never bothered the doctor about withdrawal because the doctor just turns around and says, if you're having difficulties with tranquilizers, just take an extra one. Just stick to the Ativan. And if you feel dodgy, just take an extra one. Just to carry on with the Ativan for the rest of life. That's what I said.
Perhaps the overriding question raised in tonight's report is whether it's become too easy to get a doctor's prescription for a drug like Ativan. Whether GPs know enough, indeed whether they're told enough by the manufacturers and by the government's Drug Safety Committee. Tell us what you think. Ring us on 061 814 3222. The lines are open until 11 tonight. And next week, we'll be debating the issue here in the studio. Perhaps you'll join us. From Brass Tacks, good night.